Hello, Soundies. Welcome to a work session. A little bit different than we typically do, but having you here along with me to give me some motivation here to get this video done is really helpful. So thanks for joining, and I hope there's something here for you that's useful in terms of learning some new things. So what I'm planning to do tonight is, last night I recorded a video I'm putting together. It's not really a review. I would call it more of a... There are several videos that I've done on more expensive gear, and usually I call it a why do pros use gear like this or something along those lines. And this is another one of those. So it's a piece of gear that is, what, $7,500 US. It is the Pearl 2 live stream encoder, and it kind of more of an appliance, an all-in-one appliance. So that's the backdrop for what we're doing here today. And I struggle making these kind of videos because I know that it's not something that is applicable to everybody. Obviously, this is something that is a pretty, it's just not a tool that everybody uses. But I think it's interesting, from my point of view, it's certainly interesting to get a glimpse into some of the higher end gear and what is different about it, what makes it special, why is it so expensive, and why would a pro ever consider purchasing something like this or using something like this in their work. So that's the backdrop. So what I'm going to do here is I since it's a YouTube video, so I shot the entire, or filmed the entire, what I call the main storyline, where I had my notes all put together, done my research, and recorded my description, all the voiceover and the main camera footage. And then what I'm going to do here is, because I did that all in one take, and just paused when I made a mistake, which is plenty of times, you'll see, I can actually process the audio first, then bring it into Final Cut, sync them together, and then from there I can do my main storyline cut. And so that's what I'm going to plan on doing here tonight. So that's the idea. Let me just go ahead and queue up. Let's see here. I've got to figure out, I'm doing this on my own, so I don't have someone switching for me. And I have to remember which of these inputs is the Mac. That is 1, 2, 3, 4. Input 4. So if I cut here, okay, yeah, that looks right. So right now, of course, we just have the ATEM software control up. But first thing I'm going to bring up is, I really don't have Isotope RX on my tray there, or whatever this is called, dock, I guess. We don't need that. So first thing I need to do is that, for the purposes of this live stream, I need to make sure that we're outputting to this Blackmagic so that you can hear what we're doing. For reasons I don't understand, I never got this into my dock, so we're going to go ahead and keep this in the dock, and we're going to move it into its rightful place, which is right here. Okay, so let me go ahead and I don't know if I can open. So I filmed this in a Canon RAW file with my Canon C200. So I'm not sure whether Isotope will open that and get the audio out of it, or if I'm going to have to bring it into Audition. I can't remember. So let's go ahead and try opening it here. And I've got it over on this drive. It's the Epiphan Pearl 2. Raw footage. No, it won't open that. So what that means I need to do is I will come into Audition. Another reason why I keep Audition on hand here. It's a pretty useful tool. So yeah, this will be, Lloyd is asking, yes, this will be RX9 here in this case. Oh no, coffee. Thanks for joining us. It's good to have you here. Good to have you here, Brian. This will be fun. And Watchmaker FS, good to have you here too. Is that from the Rush album? The cover? That's cool. All right. All right, here's Audition. Let's go ahead and get this to fill the screen here. I double click in the window here. We're going to pull this out of this drive here. I'm going to raw footage, and it can open this Canon RAW file. And you'll see here, it looks like it has 4 different channels here. We're only going to grab channel number 1. So it's in the process of opening this. It's an enormous, enormous file. Yep, so it only really recorded my dialogue on channel 1, which is really all we need. All these others are empty, so I'm going to right-click, extract channels to mono files. Then I can just grab this one. And I can come up to Effects to send it over to RX, go to VST3, restoration and RX9 connect, and we can send it right on over. Okay, so here we are. Let's get a little spectrogram view on this. Oh, we do have up here some funny little hums going on. Not a lot of people will be able to hear that. That's sitting, I think, at about 17. To be honest, I don't really need, this is just dialogue. I don't need a lot of that. But if I do pull up my dehum and I put it in the good old fashioned, oh, this is in the, no, I need it in the static mode, 17,490. That's where, this is it. Okay. So this is actually this line here, which is a very faint trace, probably on what you're seeing. This is a noise that one of the lights in my room makes. It's one of the Lupo LED lights, and it's pointed up at the ceiling, and it makes this, just for reference, it brings up the ambiance level of the whole thing. So I have my key light right here above my monitor. I have the Lupo light back there shooting up at the ceiling to bring the ambiance level up, and then I have a hair light that's hanging from the ceiling that puts this light right on my head. And then, of course, I have this fun little salt lamp. And then behind here, I have two Aperture MC, the little tiny LED, battery-powered LEDs that are kind of pointed up towards the door there to make that blue cast. So this is from the Lupo light. So we'll come back over here. And I've seen that it almost always hits right at 17,490 hertz. Very young people can generally hear this. Some very lucky people can hear it. But other than that, nobody can. I'm going to go ahead and run this dehum on that, and you can see it basically got rid of that. There is some other stuff up here, some other harmonics or something interesting. I'm going to go ahead and roll that off with an EQ. So let's go ahead and pull up our EQ, and we're also going to do a high pass as well. Right now it's set to 65 hertz. We can go something like that. I'm going to, let's listen to a little bit of it and just see where we're starting. And we'll go right here. These subscriptions you can do with Zoom, but give me just a second. That's really quiet for you, I realize. So we're going to pull the fader up for that and come on back. Let's play that again. What the Pearl 2 allows you to do is it uses a protocol called Secure Reliable Transport, SRT. And what SRT allows you to do is a very low latency protocol that allows you to bring a remote guest in to your Pearl 2, and then you can actually bring in multiple SRT streams from various locations throughout the world, bring them together and produce a show, and then, okay, not horrible, but there are a few things we could probably clean up just a touch here. So I'm going to also bring in a low pass here. Again, the dialogue, we really don't need much above 15 kilohertz, really. Some people might disagree with me on that, but let's go ahead and listen to what that sounds like now. What the Pearl 2 allows you to do is it uses a protocol called Secure Reliable Transport, SRT. And what the Pearl 2 allows you to do is it uses a protocol called Secure Reliable Transport, SRT. And what SRT allows you to do is a very low latency protocol that allows you to bring a remote guest in to your... Okay, it's not really affecting things much, which is kind of the goal here. I don't in terms of cutting into the dialogue, but it'll clean up that any low frequency stuff there. So if anyone's listening with a subwoofer that they've got misconfigured, we're not going to be rumbling them out of their room. And even so, that made this stuff faint up here. I might want to go ahead and turn the high pass off at this point, and I might do another round on the low pass filter just to really get that stuff out of there. Okay, let's go ahead and listen. Shouldn't affect the dialogue. Executive, and maybe from another executive somewhere else, I can bring those into the Pearl 2, create my own beautiful layouts, and be able to switch that with the Pearl 2. So, okay, it's going to work for us, I think. We're going to go ahead and come back over to our waveform view. Do we have any asymmetry? Looks like we do have a touch. I'm going to go ahead and bring up the loudness module here, loudness control. I'm not going to get super hardcore about cleaning this up. The clicks I can actually get pretty effectively Well, here's one right here. Let's see what that one sounds like. It's kind of a, I have a tendency to do that, especially in allergy season. Another one here. We'll actually do a pass. Let's actually do a pass of cleaning those up before we get into this. Right now, it's reading in at minus 27.7 LUFS in terms of overall loudness. My goodness, this was 20 minutes long. Oh, I didn't realize I talked that long about this product. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the instant process here, and I'm going to put in declick, and I'm going to pop up our declick module over here and just see how I have it configured. Sensitivity 5, I don't think I need quite 4 milliseconds, probably 2. We'll do about what we need to. And these are going to be pretty general. I don't know if we need the skew high or low. And we're going to go ahead and leave it in random clicks. Okay, let's go ahead and see how this works for us. So what I'm going to do is run through the file here, hopefully fairly quickly. And what I should be able to do is just highlight any clicks. They especially tend to occur in my speech prior to a statement. And we'll see how that cleans it up. So let me go ahead and play here. Now, yeah, mouth click. Gone. Good. Apologies for the motion. Little click in here. Good. Live switcher. So a little bit at the start of this breath. Okay. Again, apologies for the motion there. Start of this breath. Okay. A lot of them at the start of the breath like that. Still some. That one's a little more persistent. That's going to be, we're going to take care of that with the breath. Another couple of them there, 3 of them actually. And definitely here. And I'm going to take us out of this mode. Okay, I want to make sure we get this breath. I mean, you could just go hardcore and manual and come down here, pull up gain, set to -3. There's a 9 dB of attenuation, SRT. And what SRT... Okay, we'll stick with that for now. Get this out of the way. This can get out of the way too. And continue. This is quite riveting. But this is the tedium that one must endure to make great sound. If there's a lot of latency, these drive me a little bit crazy. It's another just kind of brute force way. That's because if there's a lot of latency, I don't know if that sounds better or worse. We'll guess because if there, we'll guess because if there's a lot of, yuck. We'll guess. There's like a weird snuffling noise. We'll guess because if there's a lot of latency, it's really allergies. Get all stuffy and start talking weird. Turn the instant process declick back on. What have we got here? Quite good. And we actually did. That's okay. But myself and 3 of my friends, Photo Joseph. Okay. I'll try to make quick work of this. This will be a good way to ensure that people never come by for these sessions again. Now, there is one. Good. We're almost halfway. The Pearl 2. So that's that. Undo that. I wonder if I select more. I also, if I undo that, bring up the D-click again, we may need to widen this. See if that makes a difference. So that's slightly less annoying. You can see what I'm looking for, generally things like this. To a live, see there was a, get that, reader to a live stream on a regular basis. Good. From anywhere in the world. In addition to that, I can actually also, I'm not going to worry too much about that. And technology. And so, slightly better. Another thing, okay. Question that Bambi Broadcast asked is, what kind of editing is this called? This is called dialogue editing. And I lied, we're actually now about halfway through. Just looking for the big ones, the big ugly ones, like this. Gotcha. Maybe I have to be careful of those. Whoa, cancel. For example, if you want to set up more sophisticated, oh, that's weird. For example, if you want, I don't even know what to call that. Some sort of expressive groaning. Oh, look at that one. So that's the thing I really like. Heavy duty right there. Okay. Layouts. So that's the thing I really took the kind of click out of the breath. Just like the A10 Mini, a little bit going there, a little bit here. Now, a feature that, okay, I promise people, we are almost done with this. The Pearl 2 supports not only, the Pearl 2 supports not only H. Now, one thing that's interesting about Pearl, Lloyd, the cool thing about this, whoops, is that I'm not the one doing the editing. Yeah, that's right. You can watch me toil here. Again, almost done. This is the most tedious part. Once this is done, it's not quite as tedious. Ooh. And of course, if 6 inputs, no, that's a fricative. I think that's what that's called. I'm not a linguist. Coder for a lot less money. So let's decimator 4K capable cross decimator little cross converter. Okay, we're done with that. Thank you for sticking with me. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll back out. So right now our true peak amplitude throughout the entire piece is minus 4.1. We're at minus 27.7. I'm going to try and bump up our loudness at this point here. I need a drink of water. We could do that first. So I think that we are looking a little bit asymmetric. We're tending toward the top end here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out our phase rotator here, and let's just go ahead and run that. That's going to take a little while to run here because it is a 20-minute piece. I think it says 30 seconds, but then it's going to do a second round, I bet. Or this is going to count way up. Sorry for the drinking noises. Got to stay hydrated here. Couple questions while that's running. I have RX8. Do you think RX9 is worth the upgrade? I will say some of the modules are substantially better in 9, depending on what you're doing. And I don't know which version you have, or which edition you have, whether it's Elements or Standard or Advanced. In Advanced, I think there are some definite steps forward, especially in the dialogue. Isolate has really gotten really nice. The mouth declick is something that can be pretty useful. We gained about a dB of headroom. That's good. Take a listen and make sure it didn't do anything funny. The de-hum is amazingly better. If you're ever struggling with really complex hums, the new de-hum is incredible. The voice denoise, I don't know that there was a whole lot of change to that. And I don't know if spectral denoise has changed a whole lot either, but those are some of the highlights. So it really depends on, how much you use RX and what kind of problems you're usually trying to clear up with it, and if you run into those. I've had some nasty hums in the past, so having the new de-hum is really nice. Okay, so we are good on that. Let's go ahead and have a listen here and see how it sounds after we've did the adaptive phase rotation. And that's especially true in cases, for example, in corporations or in education where you have multiple Perl devices spread out across various, maybe different cities around the world. The ability to control those remotely becomes super important. Let me give you a use case. If I've got an executive, undo, listen again, remotely using Epiphan Cloud. And that's especially true in cases, for example, I don't know, are any of you hearing a difference there? It almost sounded a little more hollow to me. I don't know. It doesn't usually affect things too much, but where you have, I'm going to go ahead, whoops, sorry about that. I'm going to go ahead and leave it as is. I'm not going to phase rotate it. So I undid that. I'm just going to go ahead and we're going to take care of normalization without doing that because it was only about a dB that it was giving us. So not a big loss if we don't. All right, so I am going to pull up my plugin here, and namely, this is the Isotope Nectar 3 plugin, and the main thing I use this for is a compressor. So I want to get my integrated loudness to minus 20 because we're working on a mono file here. When I convert that to dual mono, or stereo if you will, same thing on both channels, that's going to take it to minus 17 LUFS, which is usually what I target for my own voice, 16, 17, somewhere around there. So I need to be able to reduce about, let's see, 8 dB to get me down to minus 20, and then another dB and a half. So what, 9.5 or so? So in terms of threshold, I'm going to need, probably somewhere around here, maybe minus 12-ish. I want to go ahead and set it to that, and then I'll listen to see how it sounds. I've got my ratio at 3:1. Attack is 0.1 milliseconds. Release is starting at 300 or 500. Let's go ahead and start playing this and see how it sounds. where you have multiple Pearl devices spread out across various, maybe different cities around the world. The ability to control those remotely becomes super important. Let me give you a use case. If I've got an executive who works at a remote office or works from home and needs to be able to be a contributor to a live stream on a regular basis, I can send out to that executive a camera, a microphone, some lighting, and a Pearl Nano. Pearl Nano is kind of the younger sibling of the Pearl 2. It's smaller, it doesn't have as many inputs, but it has all these features as well. It can send an SRT stream remotely to the Pearl 2 that I'm using at the... Okay, so a couple things there I wanted to run through. So I went ahead and set up the compressor here. It's sounding fairly transparent to me, so I think we're probably good there. I also set the limiter. So again, remember we said I needed about 9.5 dB of headroom to get to my target. I went ahead and set the limiter to minus 9.5, and it did. We did run through it right around here. Let me just go so you can hear how it sounds when it hits the limiter on this peak. It's smaller, it doesn't have as many inputs. Whoops, preview. It's smaller, it doesn't have as many inputs, but it has all these features as well. It can send an when I said but, that's when it hit the limiter, and it didn't really, it's not doing anything terribly dangerous there. We have another peak right here. We can run through and preview that, see what it does. Conference, nobody has patience for crappy audio. Sorry, but I'm sorry, I care about sound. Okay. So that's going to be okay. So I'm going to go ahead and render that, and let's see where that puts us. Go ahead and run through. Love this offline rendering. That'll take you through things. A couple questions. So you're able to just you're just able to delete sounds using this software. Well, it's more focused on cleanup and kind of optimizing clips. Yeah, you can definitely delete sounds if you need to do that. Just downloaded Adobe Audition for the first time, so this is all new to me. Well, stick around. You'll learn some things here. And Lloyd asked if I have a phase meter. I don't know. Does RX9 even have a phase meter? That's a good question. The phase module here isn't really a meter. It's for doing rotation. I don't think waveform stats, spectrum. Yeah, that's just more of a like a non-real-time analyzer. Doesn't do a lot for us there. No, I don't think it does in RX, Lloyd. Just a good question. Okay, let's see how we sound now. The younger sibling of the Pearl 2. It's smaller, it doesn't have as many inputs, but okay, we're going to bump it up to minus 20. It's going to be louder, people. Be prepared on your volume. This will take another minute or, well, it's actually going quite quickly. We did get a suggestion here for a video idea. Can you show us the settings needed to apply a stereo configuration for 2 condenser mics on the Zoom F8 recorder? Sorry for spamming this. Yes, we can do that at some point. I don't do a lot of stereo recordings, but yeah, it's pretty simple. You basically just link 2 channels. You use 2 consecutive channels, and you can link them to consecutive even and odd, odd and even channel, and you can link those 2, and that will link the 2 of them, and then you can control them individually with a single set of controls. So, okay, let's see how this sounds. Again, watch your volume, people. It's going to be louder. The Pearl 2, configure it remotely using Epiphan Cloud. And that's especially true in cases, for example, in corporations or in education where you have multiple Pearl devices spread out across various, maybe different cities around the world. The ability to control those remotely becomes super important. Let me give you a use case. Okay, we've got plenty of breaths going on. Breath control is tricky business. Well, you got to kind of just tweak it. So here's our breath control module. You have 2 modes, gain and target. And I typically use target nowadays, and what the target does is you essentially say, hey, I want my breaths to kind of peak around minus 45 dB. And then you also have this sensitivity control. You can turn on the breaths, output breaths only, so you can hear it. That'll help you choose what sensitivity to you. It'll only play the breaths that it's detecting. And so it'll give you a good sense for what the plugin is actually finding, and you can increase the sensitivity or decrease the sensitivity. Now, you might ask yourself, why don't you just crank it to 100 and just go with it? The reason why is that it will start to pick up certain consonant sounds within the speech, and you don't want to remove that because then it sounds pretty horrible. Parts of the speech will just disappear. So I often find somewhere around 50 is a good place to start. Let's see what we get here. I'm going to switch it to breaths only. Should hear another one right here. And then here. You hear that? I actually caught something else. Across various, maybe different, whoops. That's weird. Listen to this. Caught this as well. It's doing pretty well. I'm going to turn off the output breaths only. You can send out to that executive a camera, a microphone, some lighting, and a Pearl Nano. Pearl Nano is kind of the younger sibling of the Pearl 2. It's smaller, it doesn't have as many inputs, but it has all these features. Okay, we're doing pretty well here. I'm going to go ahead and render that out. I'm hearing plenty of mouth, saliva types of noises. We're probably going to want to do something about that as well. So we'll go ahead and turn that off. Okay, we did our debriefing. That's going to be the mouth declick. And I want to kind of take it easy here. I don't want to go all crazy. And let's go with, you've got reduce smacks, eliminate clicks, transparent removal. Let's try that. So all this is a preset. And all that does is it sets the sensitivity to 3, which is somewhat low. So it's not going to be super aggressive. And then the frequency skew, it's going a little bit towards low frequencies, just slightly. Let's see what it does if I output clicks only. Oh, no, undo. I meant to put click preview. We'll bring it here. Sorry to do this to you. That's doing pretty well. I'm going to go ahead and render that out. Oh, wait. Oh my gosh, what happened? Well, this is a case where you left output clicks only or selected when you did the render, so you need to undo that, uncheck it, and then render. Now it will get rid of the mouth clicks and leave everything else. If you leave output clicks only selected and render it, it gets rid of everything else except for the mouth clicks. So obviously we want to get rid of the mouth clicks. All right, let's just listen to a little sample here, see how it's sounding. Some lighting, and a Pearl Nano. Pearl Nano is kind of the younger sibling of the Pearl 2. It's smaller, it doesn't have as many inputs, but it has all these features as well. It can send an SRT stream remotely to the Pearl 2 that I'm using at the headquarters location. And the nice thing is that I can control that Pearl Nano remotely from anywhere in the world. In addition to that, I can actually also... Okay. I think that's going to be good enough for us right now for this demonstration. So there are a couple things I could do. I could send this back to Adobe Audition by clicking that, heading back over to Audition, coming back up to Effects, VST3, Restoration, RX9 Connect, Apply, It brought it over. There's our processed audio. I'm going to right click and convert it to dual mono. All I have to do here is use the same as source for the sample rate and the bit depth and convert it to stereo. And that just makes it dual mono here. Now it will be just a touch louder. Bring in remote guests. And that's actually a really interesting device. But in the experience that I have so far, secure, reliable transport. Okay. If we measure that, let's see where it comes out. Minus 17 LUFS right here. Whoops. Pull this over. Yeah, minus 17 LUFS. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and we will get to editing. So I'm going to save as. The way I normally name things is just for the main storyline, it's usually 01 main. I'm going to find where I want to put this in the Epiphan Pearl 2 in the audio folder. If any raw recordings go in raw audio, but anything that's been processed goes in audio. That's my answer to a non-destructive workflow, which is not exactly non-destructive, but I do retain a copy of the originals in case anything goes south. All right, we've got that saved. I'm going to Command Q to quit. I don't need to save those changes, so we're good there. I also don't need this. We can close that and get out of there. Okay. I am going to come into the Finder to the drive where we store the project. Here is the Final Cut project, so we'll go ahead and open that next. All right, let's see what we've got going on over here. Daniel says, I took your RX training. At one point you used the Nectar compressor, which I don't have with my RX9 Advanced. Is the RX post-production suite upgrade that includes the compressor a good purchase? Oh, good question. I don't know what all is included in the post-production suite, to be honest. I think that also includes Ozone. And yeah, absolutely, there are great compressors in Ozone. That might be overkill. If you just want Nectar, that might be a less expensive way to go, but I haven't used a bad compressor that Isotope has created. So they have Nectar, they have Ozone has a compressor, a much fancier one for mastering that can do some really amazing things. It's amazing how much you can compress audio and still have it sound relatively natural and transparent with Ozone in particular. Kind of beyond the scope of what we're going to cover tonight, but some good stuff there. Brian, I'm so sorry. We did, I did try to warn. Hi, Jason. Thanks for joining us. Listening to Breaths Only makes me absolutely hyper and edgy. I keep waiting for someone to say something fascinating. Yeah, it's not fun to listen to mouth clicks, saliva noise, breaths. None of those things are really a lot of fun to listen to. Brian says, fancy audio processor, and Russell. The sound of saliva and breaths. This is actually interesting. Wouldn't wreck it, though, for an ASMR album. Agreed. Not the kind of ASMR we're looking for. All right. Okay, so I'm going to right-click here. We're going to import audio, or import, and I'm going to go into my raw audio. Oh, it's not raw audio. Remember, we put it in the audio folder. It's kind of in a different order here. There it is. Bring that in. Okay, so here's the main video clip, and here is the audio clip. So I'm just going to highlight those two, right-click, synchronize. All right, so this resolution is correct for the video. We're going to use audio for synchronization and tell it to do it automatically. So it's just going to be looking at the waveform in the audio clip, the waveform in the video clip, and using those to line everything up. And we're going to render that to an Apple ProRes 422HQ. That'll take it just a couple seconds. And there we go. And here's the new synchronized clip. And I look absolutely enormous here. I don't know why, because this should be set to fit. Okay. All right, I'm going to drag this down into the timeline, and we're going to just insert it right here because most of it's going to go there. Now, my next step here is going to be color grading. And what I need to do is right now, let me just come back over here. First, I need to get a drink of water, but then I need to show you, or just tell you a little bit about how I do the color grading and what I set up for that. Oh, it's trapped. There we go. Okay. This is the Blackmagic, it's still probably focused on me, the Blackmagic Ultra Studio Mini Monitor. So it's got Thunderbolt on this side, and it's got an SDI and HDMI outputs on the other side. So what this allows me to do is send a clean, unprocessed signal out of Final Cut into a color grading monitor I have over here. So a reference monitor. So I'm going to go ahead and plug this into the Mac first of all. Okay, we're good there. Then I have to crawl under the table for a variety of reasons I won't explain right now. Right now I have the grading monitor is my multi-view monitor for the live stream, so I need to unplug it from the switcher and plug it instead into this so that I can at least temporarily do the color grading, then we'll switch that back. So give me just a second to go grab that cable underneath. Actually, I wonder if there's another SDI input. I think there actually is. Let me go check. Okay, there's one. Oh, yes. Yes. I'm going to go ahead and just for simplicity for right now, I'm going to go grab the one that's underneath. 1 second. Okay, we got it. Now, you won't be able to see this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch back to the Mac, and on the Mac here, we go up to Window, AV Output. Now, that is putting this picture out to my color grading monitor. And I need to turn the light off that's shining in my face right now as my key light so that I can actually see the grading monitor. So give me a second on that. Okay. All right, that's not too bad. Not too terrible, but we do need to do a little bit of work on it. So I'm going to come up here, select this clip, come up here to the colors. And actually, oh, I forgot, I need to open up my scopes. I need to shut some of this other stuff so I can see my scopes well. This is interesting. What I can do, first of all, coming back here, I need to change it so that this spatial conform, we're actually filling the frame. So it's going to crop a little off the top and bottom. This is actually a 2:1 aspect ratio. So there we fill the frame. What I'm going to do now too is I'm going to do a crop here, and what I'm trying to accomplish is I want to kind of hone in on just the skin tones. Skin tones are probably the most important thing to get right when you're looking at things. And you can see this kind of skews toward magenta a little bit, a little too red. This indicator line, of course, is the skin tone line. And let me just make sure. From the top, there we go. So that's mostly skin tones there, and you can see it's skewing red. So what we may want to do is come over here into our color corrections. We can come down to the hue saturation curves. I can grab this little eyedropper here. No, let's do that again. Reset. Okay. Just get a little sample of the skin there, so it's put some control points on there. Now watch the vector scope as I move this little control point down right here. It'll actually move that skin tone closer to where it should be. Now if I come back here and turn the crop off, Funny thing is initially that looks a little green. I don't know what you're seeing on your side there, but it does look a little green initially. And part of that is your eyes have this tendency to get accustomed to what you were seeing. I'm going to turn on my scopes on the grading monitor. Give me just a moment. And just to check the scopes there, also checking there, it looks like our skin tones are about where they need to be. Okay. So I'm going to switch from the vector scope now. Whoops. Let's go to the waveform. And looks like our skin tones are actually, in terms of luminance, are about where they should be. That's good. But I'm going to come back over to the color grading and we're going to add color wheels, which is the way I generally prefer. Okay. So I'm going to pull those shadows down a touch. You can see this is the salt lamp right here. It's already, we need to pull this up some. And we can actually pull, you know, the midtones. I don't know that we need to really change those much. Can also, whoa, saturation, be careful there. Okay, so we can just check before and after here. Before, after. Looks a little more punchy. And then if I come back to the hue saturation curves, before, looks like I'm sunburnt. Now it looks closer to reality. Okay, I think we're going to call that good for now. I am going to go ahead and turn off the grading monitor and hook it back up to... my lips look pinker, according to Brian. That's probably closer to reality, to be honest. Okay, give me just a moment. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the grading monitor for now so I can have my monitor back for multi-view. It will take me just a second to do that. Okay, I got trapped in the headphone cable, but I think we're back. All right, take a little break here. Oops, forgot to turn my key light back on. Here we go. Quite a difference there without a key light. There we go. Okay. Things are coming along. What's going on? Bambi says night and day difference there. Brian says, wow, grading monitor? That's a long story, but yes. It's so amazing how much of an investment one makes in time and money just to create visuals and audio. Agreed. There's a lot involved there. All right. Let me just make sure everything is healthy over here. Looks like we're doing okay. You all doing okay out there? Hope so. All right, let's get back into the edit and show you where we're at here. Okay, so I'm done with the scopes. I'm going to turn those off. That's Command 7 on Final Cut. I am going to turn my... Let's see, do I need this panel over here? I don't know if I need that. We'll leave that off for now. I don't need it at the moment. What I'm going to do here again is my storyline edit. So I'm going to come through here. One of these is my introduction. I'm pretty sure the second take is going to be the one we want. So I'm just going to start, I'm going to go in, I'll kind of narrate as we go along to kind of explain the process here. So play through this. In this episode, we'll take a look at the Epiphan Video Pearl 2, which I would call a live stream kind of all-in-one appliance. And this is going to be for the higher end of the market. I think that works. So we will mark an out point there with the letter O. Press delete and cut the end of this. Now this is tricky because we have the magnetic thing going on here. So B for blade, cut there, A to go back to the pointer, and we're going to pull that out. That's our intro that goes here. Get rid of this slug. Oh. Okay, I'm going to turn off. Give me just a second. Sorry for all the thrashing. This is the skimming. Okay, now when I skim, it's not going to scream in your ears. I'm going to bring this out underneath the intro part. This is the intro music. And I've found that this music is technically at minus 17 LUFS as well, but because it has so much bass in it, it can sound really, really powerful. And so I've actually been dropping it by about 3 dB lately, and it sounds a little bit less jarring that way. And then I'm going to go ahead and choose my range tool, pressing the R key on the keyboard, and make a range here and drop this underneath by about 30 dB under the intro dialogue. Somewhere around there. Let's go ahead and play this and see where we're sitting right now. In this episode, we'll take a look at the Epiphan Video Pearl 2, which I would call a live stream kind of all-in-one appliance. And this is going to be for the higher end of the market. Okay, I'm going to zoom in, Command plus, and scroll. I don't have my old mouse that made this easier, but we can tune this. Press A to choose the pointer. Go out about right there. We're going to come over here to our transitions and grab a cross dissolve. Why is it not going on there? There it is. Quick cross dissolve. Let's try that again. In this episode, we'll take... Okay, to save your ears, I'm going to pull the levels down a little bit on playback by about 8 dB. Well, let's do 6. Okay. And playback. In this episode, we'll take a look at the Epiphan Video Pearl 2, which I would call a live stream kind of all-in-one appliance. And this is going to be for the higher end of the market. Could change this fade a little bit. Be for the higher end of the market. Just want those drum beats to come in right for the higher end of the market. Okay, come in here and change the title. This is the placeholder essentially. It's a pack of motion graphics that I purchased at some point. So let's just call this "Why Do Pros Use This?" Use gear like this. And so I need to highlight that, and we're going to need to make it a lot smaller, of course. Here, this is the Epiphan Pearl 2. That'll be our working title for now. Plays like this. Okay, and then here's the summary. So we're just going to call this summary for now. Drag that up. We'll come back and get that later. And then we need to find where we cut in. Now, want to set the stage for this. This is not a review. This is... Need to extend this a little bit. O for out point, delete, and playback. Now, want to set the stage for this. This is not, it's a little jarring. Now, want to set the stage a little less and fade this in. Now, want to set the stage for this. This is not a review. This is more of an educational piece to, depending on where you're coming from, to either give you some context for why anyone in the world would ever want to pay $7,500 for a live streaming appliance. So if you're a hobbyist and you know, for you, it's like, that doesn't make any sense for me to spend that kind of money for something like this. Totally understand. I'm not trying to sell this to anybody. What I am trying to do is give you some context for where it is an appropriate tool, where it would make sense. Someday, who knows, maybe you'll be in a situation where someday, who knows, maybe. Okay, so we have a little problem here that we need to solve. I tripped up on my words. Context for where, what I am trying to do is give you some context for where it is an appropriate tool, where it would make sense. Someday, who knows, maybe you'll be in a situation where, I was going to say position and then I changed the situation. So I'm going to mark the in point here. Someday, who knows. And the out point here, delete that segment. And let's see how that plays for us. Tool, where it would make sense. Someday, who knows, maybe you'll be in a situation. Okay. Obviously, really awkward cut in terms of the visuals. It's a jump cut. And we will cover this with some B-roll. I'll have a hero shot of the Pearl 2 that'll cover this. But I think in terms of the audio itself, now what I need to do is select both of these clips and do an Option T to do a little crossfade between them. So this is what it sounds like now. Where it would make sense. Someday, who knows, maybe you'll be in a situation where, still a little awkward with that breath. Pull it closer here. Where it would make sense. Someday, who knows, maybe you'll be in a situation where it would make sense. Someday, who knows, maybe you'll be in a situation where you will be hired to produce a live stream with a substantial budget, and something like this might make sense. Okay. It's a little pause here. Let's see how it plays. And something like this might make sense. Now, of course, for those of you that work in corporate live streaming, okay, this pause is a little too long. And there's like a click here. No, it actually can't hear that. Work in corporate live streaming, production. No, that's not where the pause is. And something like this might make sense. Now, of course, for those of you, I think it's actually here. Out. I'm not going to cut the whole thing, but part of it. Like this might make sense. Now, of course, for those of you that work, put in a crossfade with the Option T. Like this might make sense. Now, of course, for those of you that work in corporate live streaming, production companies, maybe in education, or perhaps in house of worship, something like this might make sense as well. If this is for those of you, okay, here's my dismissal. I'm going to cut in there, out here. Makes sense as well. For those of you that have no interest in this, you are dismissed. There is no reason to stick around. Just want to provide a little bit of background on when this makes sense. Okay. Up arrow to go back to the cut. Select both, Option T for crossfade. It makes sense as well. For those of you that have no interest in this, you are dismissed. There is no reason to stick around. Just want to provide a little bit of background on when this makes sense. Okay, big pause here. In point, out point, cut with the delete key. Makes sense. Now, most of you have probably heard, maybe a little bit longer, background on when this makes sense. Now, most of you have probably heard, okay, crossfade, Option T, when this makes sense. Now, most of you have probably heard, certainly those of you in my audience that come from a more hobby or kind of side hustle based live streaming world, this is a very different type of device from something like a Blackmagic ATEM Mini live switcher. So the question is, how is it different? Well, One of the things that I end up doing a lot in the corporate live streams that I work on is we often have remote guests. And in fact, our host is remote from the main location where we do the actual live stream production. And so for us, what's really important is having an ability to bring in remote guests and our remote host and combine them all into one live stream and then stream out from there. In our case, to YouTube, but whatever platform you're streaming to. And there are a variety of ways you can do that. There are some cloud services, and you might ask, well, why don't you just use something like StreamYard or Restream.io or something like that? And certainly that is one option. There are some things that those don't really allow us to do very effectively where we prefer to have a little bit more control. And another thing that is important is the ability to bring in these. I need to figure out how I'm going to say this exactly. Oops. And some people say, well, why don't you just use something like Zoom? It has an end. Okay. So we're going to cut in here, but we got to figure out where we're cutting out. Well, out here and in somewhere else. Don't really allow us to do very effectively where we prefer to have a little bit more control. And another thing that is important is the ability to bring in these. Here it is. Have a little bit more control. And I think we're going to cut right here. In point. Nope. In point. Got to go find the out point again. I accidentally clicked off. So this will be the out point about here. Have a little bit more control. And some people say, well, why don't you just use something like Zoom? It has have a little bit more control. And some people say, well, why don't you just okay, crossfade, where we prefer to have a little bit more control. And some people say, well, why don't you just use something like Zoom? It has an end. Remember, all these funky jump cuts will be covered up with other footage or B-roll. So that's the plan here. Keep going. NDI interface, why can't you just use Zoom to bring in remote guests? And indeed, you can do that as well. Zoom generally, at least at the consumer level, doesn't provide the greatest of quality. I think there are some enterprise subscriptions you can do with Zoom, but we really wanted our own solution. And so what the Pearl 2 allows you to do is it uses a protocol called Secure Reliable Transport, SRT. And what SRT allows you to do is a very low latency protocol that allows you to bring a remote guest in to your Pearl 2, and then you can actually bring in multiple SRT streams from various locations throughout the world, bring them together and produce a show, and then stream that out from there. So it is, again, really, really high quality and very low latency. So that's really nice. Now, you might ask, well, why don't you just use the ATEM hardware bridge, the little device they give you that allows you to bring in remote guests? And that's actually a really interesting device. But in the experience that I have so far, Secure Reliable Transport actually can operate with much lower latency. And latency is important when you're doing live streams, especially with multiple guests, because if there's a lot of latency, it's really awkward when people are having conversations because they start to talk over each other because they don't receive the other feed for some, say maybe at least half a second or longer. Especially if it gets longer than that, it gets really awkward and people start talking over each other and things like that. SRT is actually quite good. And we actually did a live stream last year in 2021, and I'll put the link for that over here so you can see that. But myself and three of my friends, Photo Joseph, Aaron Parecki, and John Barker of Here to Record, did a live stream. And the way it worked was each of the three of us sent our streams via SRT to Photo Joseph, and then he combined it on his Pearl 2 and then streamed not just to his own YouTube channel, but to my channel, Aaron Parecki's channel, and I believe John's channel as well. So we had 4 outgoing streams to different channels and 4 SRT remote, or 3 SRT remote streams coming in to the Pearl 2. And being able to put all that together and make beautiful layouts was super easy, but also produced what I think is a really, really high quality show. Okay. Pretty good go there. 5 minutes in. Let's see what this part says. Now, there is one, I don't know if you want to look at it as a downside. Okay, so that's our next cut in point, but I've got a breath here, so I've got to work around that. Let's go out there and see how this sounds. Really, really high quality show. Now there is one, if I put a transition or a crossfade, really high quality show. Now there is one, I don't know if you want to look at it as a downside, there is a little click here. I don't know. See if we can take care of that. So I'm going to get the cut tool, the blade tool, cut here, cut here. So I made this little tiny segment. All it has, isn't it, in terms of audio is that mouth click. Come over here to my effects. I've got my isotope effects in here. This could be a click that I missed earlier. So here's my RX9 D-click. We'll drop it on that one little segment there. See what that does for us. Now there is one, I don't know if you want to look at it as a downside. There is one thing you, now there is one, I don't know if you want to look at it as a downside. There is one thing you do have to take into consideration, is that is wherever the Pearl 2 is located, whatever firewall you have between that and the internet, there is some configuration you'll need to make to allow those SRT streams to come into the Pearl 2. So just something to keep in mind, and that you're going to need to have an IT person or a network engineer or whatever it is in your particular case, or maybe it's just you streaming from home. I don't know. Whatever the case may be, is there is a little bit of configuration you'll need to do with your firewall to allow those streams in. Okay. I think we can cut in point there, out here, delete, crossfade, allow those streams in. The Pearl 2 has 6 inputs, 2 12G SDI inputs. If you don't know what that means, SDI is really nice because SDI, you can run cables much longer than you can HDMI. It's a little different than HDMI from the standpoint that you don't get the communication. It doesn't do all the handshaking stuff, so you have to send the right signal from the source to the input on the Pearl or whatever other device has SDI inputs. But 12G allows you to bring in 4K sources. So it's a very high quality connection. It locks. I love SDI. Actually, I'd prefer SDI over HDMI any day if I could. So it does have 2 of those, and plus it does have 4 HDMI inputs for HD sources. So that's what you get on the Pearl 2, which gives you a total of 6 inputs. Now, what if that's not enough inputs? What if you need more? Well, you can always put a switcher in front of the Pearl 2 if you needed to do that as well. Okay. In point, out. Looks like there's a breath there. We might need to do some work on that. Sorry, I'm used to working without other people. We may need to work on that breath. Needed to do that as well. Now you might be scratching your head like, not too bad. Crossfade. You needed to do that as well. Now you might be scratching your head like, I'm not getting it, Curtis. There's still got to be more to it. Well, there are definitely some more things to it. And let me run through some of those things. I think one thing that really sets it apart is the ability for, I think you're going to see this especially in corporate and in education, the ability to control the Pearl 2, configure it remotely using Epiphan Cloud. And that's especially true in cases, for example, in corporations or in education where you have multiple Pearl devices spread out across various, maybe different cities around the world. The ability to control those remotely becomes super important. Let me give you a use case. If I've got an executive who works at a remote office or works from home and needs to be able to be a contributor to a live stream on a regular basis, I can send out to that executive a camera, a microphone, some lighting, and a Pearl Nano. Pearl Nano is kind of the younger sibling of the Pearl 2. It's smaller, it doesn't have as many inputs, but it has all these features as well. It can send an SRT stream remotely to the Pearl 2 that I'm using at the headquarters location. And the nice thing is that I can control that Pearl Nano remotely from anywhere in the world. In addition to that, I can actually also live switch it as well. So if I'm controlling my Pearl 2 and I'm getting the SRT stream from that executive and maybe from another executive somewhere else, I can bring those into the Pearl 2, create my own beautiful layouts, and be able to switch that with the Pearl 2. So that's something that's pretty unique. Now, you might say, well, but Curtis, an A10 Mini is so much cheaper. Why don't I just use that? Well, the reality is that executives don't always have time, or lecturers at a university don't always have time to learn all this technology. And so being able to administer that remotely makes a huge, huge difference and actually opens up opportunities that may not be realistic otherwise. Okay, got a big pause here. Endpoint, outpoint, delete, crossfade, whoops, crossfade, and let's see how it goes. Be realistic otherwise. Another thing that's really cool about Pearl 2 is that you can stream to multiple destinations at the same time. So in this example that we showed earlier with the link, we had a setup where there were 4 of us on the live stream, and we were streaming to all 4 of our YouTube channels at the same time. So we didn't need to use any other services to make that happen, no Restream IO or anything else. We just were able to stream directly from the Pearl 2. As far as I'm aware, none of the A10 minis are capable of doing that. Okay, in, out, delete, Option T to crossfade. These are capable of doing that. Another great feature for those bigger productions, if you think, for example, of maybe a conference at a big hotel in the big conference room, is the ability to have balanced line inputs. So you can have a mixer set up there if you have multiple microphones and actually feed that audio directly into the Pearl 2. Great feature. Having a physical mixer makes a huge, huge difference when you're trying to produce a really high quality production. And in those kind of circumstances for a conference, nobody has patience for crappy audio. Sorry, but I'm sorry. I care about sound, and having a very bad experience for your audience just isn't an option in those situations. If you're a working professional, if you're a production company, you have to produce something that is worth the money, and that's part of it. That's a baseline thing. You have to get the audio right. So having that ability to bring in balanced line inputs from a mixer, super, super great. Now, on the A10 minis, they have those inputs. They're unbalanced inputs, so that means you can't run really long cables or else you're much more likely to pick up interference, but that is an option if you need to do something like that in a pinch. Nice to have balanced inputs because then I can run much longer cables if the mixer can't sit right next to the Pearl 2, for example. Probably a little redundant there, but I think we're going to keep that. In, out point, delete, Option T, crossfade, next to the Pearl 2, for example. Pearl 2 has a touch, little bit more, next to the Pearl 2, for example. Pearl 2 has a touch. I increase the length of that crossfade. There's some clothing rustle here. The Pearl 2, for example. Pearl 2 has a touch screen to be able to control and do some of the configuration, but really most of the work happens in a browser app that you connect to the Pearl 2 via the network that you're connected to. And this gives you the ability to do everything. I mean, all the detailed configuration, including setting up your layouts. And the layouts on the Pearl 2 are very, very different than how you approach things with an A10 Mini. A10 Mini is basically a production, kind of a traditional production mixer put into a really small form factor. So what that means is it approaches layout in the same way that it's always been done in production for a lot of years, decades. And it's, for example, if you want to set up more sophisticated layouts, you have to use things like upstream keys and downstream keys, and you have to get your mind around how all of that works, which is a lot of fun to do. And of course, if you're a professional, of course you can do that. What's neat about the Pearl 2, though, from my perspective, is that it uses basically a drag and drop interface to set up your layouts, and you can do some really cool things. Whereas you have to have an A10 Mini that has the super source capability to create these more complex layouts. On the Pearl 2, that's just it's like a no-brainer. It is literally just drop in. If I have, for example, 3 SRT sources coming in, like we did again on this show that I showed you before, I can literally drag and drop the different sources up on there, reframe them, crop them, get it laid out as exactly as I want, have a nice background. Oh, allergies. Sorry about this. So for example, with this previous, gotta go find this now. So here's our out point. Scrolling back. Perspective is that it uses basically a drag and drop. Some really cool things. Whereas you have to have an A10 Mini that has the super source capability to create these more complex layouts. On the Pearl 2, that's just kind of, it's like a no-brainer. It is literally just drop in. If I have, for example, on the Pearl 2, that's just kind of, I think here, these more complex layouts. So for example, with this previous link that I showed you, the show that I did with my other friends, getting that layout set up on a Pearl 2 is super straightforward and really easy and intuitive. It's literally bringing in, yeah, I think that's right. Need a crossfade here. Create these more complex layouts. So for example, with this more complex layouts. So for example, with got a little kind of an awkward breath in layouts. So for example, with where is that? Layouts. So for example, with this previous link that I showed you, the show that I did with my other friend, I had to cut closer to the end of this dialogue to get rid of that little breath. And again, this will be covered with B-roll, so it won't be so awkward visually. Create these more complex layouts. So for example, with this previous link that I showed you, the show that I might be able to come in sooner as well to make it less awkward. Create these more complex layouts. So for example, with this previous link that I showed you, the show that I layouts. So for example, with this previous, still a little awkward, but probably good enough for YouTube. Link that I showed you, the show that I did with my other friends, getting that layout set up on a Pearl 2 is super straightforward and really easy and intuitive. It's literally bringing in the different sources, dropping them on the canvas, cropping them, resizing them, placing them where you want them with your mouse. It's really, really straightforward on how to do things like that to create these really beautiful and cool layouts. So that's the thing I really like about the Pearl 2 that makes it a little easier to use than a traditional broadcast switcher. Oof. Clearing the throat. In, out. Oop, breath out. Try there. Put in our crossfade. Traditional broadcast switcher. Just like the ATEM Mini ISO models, the Pearl 2 can record not only your program, but also your individual inputs. So that can be recorded to internal storage on the Pearl 2 or to external devices via USB. So you've got options there. If you just have a thumb drive, for example, a fast thumb drive, you can plug that right in. And what was that? Did I hit the microphone? Got options there. If you just have a thumb drive, for example, a fast thumb drive, you can plug that right in and be able to record that. Oof, I don't know if I'll be able to clean that up. Options there. If you just have a thumb drive, for example, a fast thumb drive, you can plug that right in and be able to record that. If you've got an external drive, you can do that. And of course, there is the internal storage. Not ideal. Could do a retake of that line. External devices via USB. So you've got options there. If you just have a thumb drive, for example, a fast thumb drive, you can plug that right in. Just have a thumb drive, for example, a fast thumb drive, you can plug that right in and be able to record that. If you've got an external drive, you can do that. What we could do is a high pass filter right there. Let's see where it happens. Thumb drive, for example, fast thumb right there. Let's just cut here. Blade. Okay, highlight that clip. I think we probably have an EQ here. It's a match EQ. There's an equalizer. I'm going to drop that on here. Come up to the audio. And where is that plugin? Is it here? Hey, give me my plugin. Why is it not showing? Oh, here it is. Okay. So go with a digital, so it's linear phase. Uh-oh. This could be interesting. Large beach balls. I don't know if ozone is actually working. Oh, actually, this is not an M1 silicon computer, so I don't know. This is not looking promising here, people. I hope we don't get a crash. Incidentally, this is definitely I'm almost positive this is an ozone thing. Okay, well, let's go. While that's spinning, let's take a look at the chat here and see what we've got here from Bambi Broadcast. A few adjustments made a huge difference. That's referring back to the color grading, absolutely. Chaos Magic Studios, what's the fastest way for me to normalize and match loudness on an 1.5-hour single take? If you're not going to if it's not going to have anything else like music running underneath it, the fastest way is an offline processor like RX, like we showed earlier. So that's probably the fastest way because it's an offline processor. So you don't have to run through the entire thing to get a measurement to figure out how much you need to boost it. So an offline one would take it a few minutes as opposed to actually running through the entire thing. So that's generally how I would approach it. There are other ways if you want to use a service like Auphonic, AUPHONIC online. They have a processor. You do have to pay for that. It's per minute of video, I think. And you can get a certain number of hours. You might be able to get an hour free per month or something. I'm not sure, but you might take a look at Auphonic as well. Cool live edit demo of your videos. And Jason says, love watching this hands-on real-world troubleshooting and editing. Hey, Alejandro, thanks for joining us. Real798. Hey, Curtis, I have a request. Can you make a tutorial video for setting up a wireless boom system with boom audio for my boom op? I'm currently researching for my Zoom F8N and can't find any tutorials. We actually have. I think we had a routing demo on YouTube that I did for one of the Sound for Video sessions some time ago. So if you do a search for Curtis Judd Audio Zoom routing, and I think there is a video that will walk you through some of the details on that. So hopefully that is helpful for you. Okay, unfortunately, I might have to quit because I'm still dealing with the beach ball here. So let me pull up another app here and go into Force Quit for Final Cut Pro, which is not playing nicely with Isotope Ozone. Okay, so we force quit that. Let's see what happens when we open up Final Cut again. Hopefully I didn't lose too much. Usually I don't lose a whole lot if it does crash. So we will switch back over there and see where we're at here. Okay. Is this the last cut here? Oh no. Nope, there's more. Quite a bit more. I think this is where we were at. Yeah, this is where we were at. Okay, we didn't lose anything as far as I can tell. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to get rid of that. We're just going to highlight this right here and delete it. I don't want to use ozone in here. Instead, we do have a equalizer here. And let me just do that myself, I guess. So we can do basically a high pass, something like this. And let's see what that does for this. I'm going to put my headphones back on. And what we're trying to do is get rid of that kind of low frequency boom when I do this thing with my hands here. I think I bumped the desk. Just have a thumb drive, for example, fast thumb drive, you can plug that right in. Nope, too extreme. This needs to come back up. Drive, for example, fast thumb drive, you can plug that right in and be able to record that. You've got an options there. If you just have a thumb drive, for example, fast thumb drive, you can plug that right in. It's not getting rid of it. I don't want any of those. There's this voice isolation, which is new. Let's see what that does for us. I'm going to turn off the equalizer. You've got options there. If you just have a thumb drive, for example, fast thumb drive, you can plug that right in. Nothing for that. Uncheck. I guess let's turn that equalization off. Hopefully it helps a little, maybe. Options there. If you just have a thumb drive, for example, fast thumb drive, you can plug that right in and be able to record that. You've got an external drive, you can do that. And of course, I'm going to have to come back. That's going to take a little bit of time there. So we'll keep going. I'm going to go ahead and pull that closed. For that, you've got an external drive, you can do that. And of course, there is the internal storage. Okay. Mark our in point, out point, delete, highlight both, crossfade, Command T, playback. There is the internal storage. Now, when it comes to live switching, there is an app called Epiphan Live, which allows you to do the live show, to actually switch that. So that makes it easy, and you can put that on a tablet if you needed to, so that you're not necessarily tied to a desk. So that makes things a little easier as well. Okay, stop there. We've got a pretty substantial breath going into this one. Let's see how it sounds. Now, a feature, it's okay. I think just philosophy-wise, I don't like to cut all the breaths out because it starts to sound otherworldly, but I do like to manage them so they're not so prominent. And in this case, I think we'll be okay. So let's delete that. Again, apply Command T for a crossfade there and playback. So that makes things a little easier as well. Now, a feature that was put into the Pearl 2's really kind of catering to the education world or perhaps to the corporate world is that when you're done with a program, it can actually automatically upload the recordings to a content management. I want to address this really quickly. Lloyd has a great question. Do you have a spectrum analyzer meter? You could see where the bump is. I don't in here. I may have to bump that out to another app to do that, Lloyd. But yeah, I absolutely agree. That would be the... I'd probably actually take it into RX again and use the spectral denoise to clean that up a little bit. So, go moving on. Management system or to an FTP file server, whatever it is you need it to do. So that comes in real handy again in the corporate world and in education. I think a great use case for that in the education world is if you're recording a lecture, as soon as that's done, there are a variety of different integrations within the Pearl 2 to specific education content management systems. And it can actually not only do the scheduling of the recordings for the lectures, but also get the lectures over into that content management system. Okay. Endpoint, outpoint, delete, crossfade, playback, a content management system. The Pearl 2 can encode to H.264 or H.265. So again, this is a little different than the A10 minis. We've got this forward-looking capability of encoding to H.265, which is far more efficient. And I think at some point before too much longer, we're going to start to see support for that on the major kind of mass market platforms like YouTube. In fact, I think we have that already. Another take. I want to say that one again. Yes, that's what I thought. The Pearl 2, talking to myself. Sorry, people. We'll do our out point right here. Get rid of the old take. Option T. It's already there. It also leaves this little slug. We'll get rid of that. Playback or into that content management system. The Pearl 2 supports not only H.2, a little bit more time between that content management system. The Perl 2 supports not only H.264 encoding, but also H.265. So again, this is one of those situations looking forward to the future. H.265 is a far more efficient codec. You can get better quality by using less bandwidth. And as we start to see support for that on the major mass market platforms, I think you're going to see that and find that'll be a really useful feature as well. Now, one thing that's interesting about Perl 2 for another use case that the A10 minis don't support is if you wanted to stream to your own website. Say, for example, you have a membership website of some sort where you have people that have signed up for your service, whatever that is, and you want to be able to stream directly to them behind an authentication wall of some sort or a paywall. You can do that using HLS with the Perl 2. So you can stream directly to your own site. So you can stream directly to your own site and so you can stream directly to little breath there, in there, out there, out here, whoops, out, delete, Command T, crossfade, playback, roll 2. So you can stream directly to your own. Oh, we have two so's. We've got a problem. So, let's try in there, delete, put in a bit more time, using HLS with the Perl 2. So you can stream directly to your own. That'll probably work. I just need to tighten up when. Make sure we have a crossfade in there. Yep. With the Perl 2. So you can stream directly to your own site and not have to use one of the platforms if you don't want to. Good. Okay. So you can stream directly to your own site and you don't have to use one of the mass market platforms. Okay, so I did another take on this. I got to find where it starts in the original take. HLS with the Perl 2. So you can stream directly to your own site. Oops. Okay, so that's in the point. The in point, I mixed up my selection. I'm going to go out about there. HLS with the Perl 2. So you can stream directly to your own. Okay, that's a little awkward. Using HLS with the Perl 2. So you can stream directly to your own site and you don't have to use one of the mass market platforms if you don't want to. Okay. Endpoint there, out there. Whoops, breath. Move it back. Ooh. Seriously? Let's come in a little closer. Out there. Another thing that is interesting. Whoops. Command T to get that crossfade, playback platforms if you don't want to. Another thing that is interesting is that if you are, for example, we're producing, it's a little rushed. See what this does. Platforms if you don't want to. Another thing that is interesting is that if you are, for example, we're producing a show that was at a hotel, like a conference type of thing, and streaming it, there is also live transcription capabilities that are not built in, but you can add from Epiphan Video. So that's all integrated. So if you did need to add that capability, maybe just rent it for a particular show, or if you do a lot of shows that require that, that's an option as well. Okay. In, out, delete, Option T, crossfade, or that. That's an option as well. And of course, if 6 inputs is not enough for you, you can always use a traditional switcher in front of the Perl and then feed the program output of that into the Perl. And in fact, a lot of the, like even the A10 Mini Extremes have 2 outputs. And so you could feed 2 different things via that if you wanted to into the Perl. Okay. Then we have a bunch of stuff here that we're getting rid of. Now, this is not a cheap device, as I mentioned. Okay. Out. No, out. There's a breath. Ouch. I think this breath actually is meaningful. I think. Let's see. Excuse me. Into the pearl. Now, crossfade into the pearl. Now, this is not a cheap device, as I mentioned before. $7,500 USD, and you might be scratching your head, for those of you that are more hobby streamers or side hustle streamers, and thinking, when in the world would this ever make sense for anybody to buy this other than the largest production companies? And the answer is it really probably is more suited to production companies, education institutions. I don't like calling them education institutions, even though that's technically correct. And the reality is it really is aimed more at the corporate setups, the education world. There's where we want to go. So out point there. And the answer is it really probably is more suited to production companies, education. Let's try cutting in point there. Delete. It is more suited to production companies. And the reality is it really is aimed more at anybody to buy this other than the largest production companies. And the answer is it companies. And the answer is cut this out, other than the largest production companies. And the reality is it really is and there's an kind of n for and right there. Largest production companies. And the reality is it really is aimed more at the crossfade, other than the largest production companies. And the reality is it really is this. I hate that kind of cut, but that might be what we need to do here. That's a very YouTube-y kind of jump cut that lots of creators do. Not a huge fan of it, but let's see what we can make work here. Largest production companies. And the reality is it really is, that's not as bad, other than the largest production companies. And the reality is it really is aimed more at the corporate setups, the education world, for maybe house of worship, anything where you're doing these productions where there is a budget involved, a substantial budget involved, and they're expecting high quality results. That's where something like this makes sense. Now, you might say, well, I could probably piece together a Blackmagic or other broadcast switching system and encoder for a lot less money. So let's think about that. So I have an Blackmagic ATEM 2 ME switcher. That's about a $4,000 switcher, as I recall. Plus I have a $1,500 encoder that I put with that. So now we're at $5,500. Plus I have 5 decimator 4K capable cross converters. Those are $500 each. So I've got 5 of those. So I'm already up to the same price as an Pearl 2. So you can see how they actually are, it's not as ridiculous a price as it seems, because once you had to add all those other things to your setup with a more traditional broadcast switcher, you're in the same ballpark. And from my point of view, some of the features that the Pearl 2 has that those other things don't have built in make it a pretty compelling option. So hopefully, again, I'm not trying to sell the Pearl 2. I realize that the market for them is relatively limited, but I hope that gives you some context for where a tool like this makes sense. And if you ever find yourself in a situation where you have been hired to do a production where you really do need to deliver all of these things, Pearl 2 may actually make sense for that situation. So hope that was helpful for you. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave those down below. And if you've not already subscribed, make sure you do that. And I'll be sure to get you more great videos on how to improve your lighting and sound for video. Talk to you soon. Okay. Talk to you soon. Whoops, delete that. Pull this down again by 3 dB. Okay, I'm gonna zoom out just a touch. We're going to pull this out. Whoops. What I'm trying to do here is find where I start to go into the outro. Yourself in a situation where Pearl. Okay, that's about right. Range tool with the R on the keyboard. Highlight all this, pull it down by about 30, 29 dB, something like that. Also, we want to fade in. We're going to do an S curve. See how that plays. Over all of these things, Pearl 2 may actually make sense for that situation. So hope that was helpful for you. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave those down below. And if you've not already subscribed, make sure you do that. And we'll be sure to get you more great videos on how to improve your lighting and sound for video. Talk to you soon. Okay, give it just another half a beat here. Move this fade point. And we'll be sure to get you more great videos on how to improve your lighting and sound for video. Talk to you soon. Whew, that was a long one. Total runtime 17:56. That's a ridiculous YouTube video. I don't know if anyone's going to watch it, and I don't really care. I'm sorry. These are the kind of things I love doing, videos where you get to talk about, give people context for like some of this high-end gear or expensive gear. I know it's not the type of thing that as a YouTube creator that's going to make me a lot of money. I don't care. For me, this is of interest because I have been doing some corporate live streaming lately and been looking for the right solution for the business. So to me, this was actually kind of fascinating. Hope it was useful for you as well. Back out in the chat, Lloyd did say this is back when we were trying to fix that little low frequency kind of bump sound. He said you could use an active EQ like a de-esser, but move the frequency to where the bump is. So anyway, that is an option there. And Brian says, I just watched. Indeed you did. So you're all set. Anyway, hope that was helpful for you in terms of seeing how we go about this. The next step, of course, is now I need to go through, I'll watch through and do an index of the whole thing. So on YouTube, you know how you get those chapter markers on the little playhead or the little timeline at the bottom. So what I need to do is write down all of those times so I can put that in the description so it will create that those chapter markers. Incidentally, I believe that the chapter markers now, the text that you put on them, but it also helps with search engine optimization. So it's using all the words that you put in those chapter markers to say, oh, this will kind of feed into our search algorithm within YouTube. And I think that also gets shared with Google as well. So that's one thing. Of course, what you put in the description makes a difference there. I'm told that the tags don't make as much of a difference there these days, that the tags are really for identifying potential alternate spellings or misspellings of different words that are really important to, keywords for your particular topic. I know I used to pour, I think a lot of people still pour a lot of effort into those tags. I think nowadays they rely less on the tags and look more for your description and what you're talking about in the description. The chapter markers, if you can, ideally put in closed captions. I think it's using the closed captions as well to really optimize for search. So anyway, so I'll do that. I'll put the index together. Then I'll come back and run through and note down all the B-roll that I need to film. I'll film the B-roll. I'll cut that in. I do need to come back as well. We didn't do the summary just yet, so I've got some notes over in here. And in this, again, because it isn't really a review, I'm not going to have the pros and cons. Typically on our, let me just show you one of my older ones here. So when I did the Zoom F3 video, I had noted down all of my pros and cons. So I would actually just bring these into the summary. In this current one, it's not so much a pros and cons, but more of a, what does this device do that less expensive live stream switchers like an A10 Mini doesn't do? So, all right. Hope you all have a great evening. I'm not ready to send you off with some music because first I need to do a couple things. Let me just show you. First, I need to come into here. We need to pull the levels down for the Mac, which is where the music is going to play back. The music is over here. I need to cue up the outro music, and I need to get ready on the switcher as well. So coming back over here, I want to go to Media Player 2, which just for reference is this. I'm showing you all the details here. So I will I'll go ahead and do it. So I'm going to switch to the thanks for watching slide. Then I'm going to jump right back over here, and I'm going to pull the fader back down on my mic, which is coming in on the C70, the camera. Actually, it's a C200. I switched it out. And then I'm going to hop over to the music app and play the outro music. So that's how this is going to work. So here we go. Thanks again, everybody. Talk to you later.